Welcome to Mindfully Integrative Podcast with your host, Dr. Damaris G. Mindfully Integrative is a podcast discussing ways toward mindfully incorporating integrative health into our lives. This podcast will have informative resources, fun topics, interviews, and discussions relatable for today with a true mindful perspective in a mind-body, holistic life approach.
Hi, how are you? This is Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, and this is the Mindfully Integrative Show. And thank you so much for joining in. Today we have a mindful chat with a really wonderful gentleman, Roger Pollard, and he will be able to kind of talk to you. He's a teacher, he's an advocate, he's a motivator, and he has a lot to discuss with how he can kind of help you get into your right mindset and transition. So thank you so much, Roger, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to just share some thoughts and have a moving dialogue with you.
Yeah, I love it. I'm excited when I meet different guests and individuals because I want to know what their point of view in this integrative health space that I call it, but really a holistic point of view from a conventional model or just what they use in addition to their own health journey. So kind of where did this come for you that, you wanted to be on the podcast and talk to individuals on your health journey?
Well, of course, I'm a high school teacher and I was a football coach for 14 years. And what I realized is it's not really about what people do as much as how they do. Like I used to tell my players and I tell my students right now, you can't change how you feel, but you can change how you act, and how you act will change how you feel. So, just getting out there. And as a teacher, I think the most important thing for our youth isn't the material covered, but the ability for the adult in the room to get them motivated, right? To get them in the proper state of mind so that they can receive information. And it's just something that I love doing, just sitting on here with you on this podcast. It's not about yielding a paycheck, so to speak, but just sharing a little bit more of what we wish, some of the change that we wish to see in the world. And sometimes, and we've all done it. We've been sitting in a movie or we're listening to someone talk and something resonates with us. So the more we can communicate about the positive ways and the positive benefits that different action can take in our lives and make, someone's life or someone's day just a little bit better, I really feel joy from that. So, that's why I guess I started that journey and it matriculated into writing books and giving motivational speeches and talks.
Just writing books is not a little nothing, and to motivate other people. I mean, you obviously have had, you're a coach, a football coach, a teacher, but what got you into kind of getting into that motivational point? What was there? Was there a turning point in your life, or was there anything in negative or positive that kind of transitioned you to say, you know what, I really want to make a difference in this way?
Well, I mean, we all have, negative and positive and negative experiences throughout our lives, but for me, I've just always been that motivator. Just from me being a player in high school and in college, and then again, that's where I got into coaching football. I loved it. It was a part of my daily routine, simply because, when we're in the AC, and I think everybody suffers from this, we will say, okay, I need to do this. I need to eat right. I need to start exercising. I want to lose weight. I want to do this. And there's a big difference in what people say and what we're willing to do. Right. And I've always, just as a coach and as a teacher, if I go into my freshman classrooms and I ask them how many of them want to go to college, everybody raises their hand. But then when I ask them how many of them are studying for the SATs, how many of them are studying for the ACT, how many of them are doing, they have a 30-second a block that they just do review, not homework, not something that's assigned, but something that you are doing for you to put yourself in the pot because you say you love yourself. How much are you sacrificing for yourself? And I've just always found it interesting. I don't know, that we will always say more than what we're willing to do. I tell my students, the first person we lie to is ourselves. So, with that, it kind of led me on a little bit of a journey and better honing my skill to speak to somebody to get them in that right mindset. Because like I said before, it's really honestly, like we all know, like we can sit down right now, we can take a deep meditative breath in and out, and we can say, what's one thing I need to do? And you know it right now. Like, you know, you need to clean your room, and you know, you need to do the laundry, you know, you need to do a workout. And the difference between the action and the thought, you know, so what I tell people is, if you look at the word belief, it's be life. Like, what you believe is what you do. You can't tell yourself what you do. We have to, as human beings, take a step back every now and then and look ourselves in the mirror and say, and just observe ourselves. And off of your observation of self, you can really see what you believe. And we need to course correct. You know, we need to have that deep reflection with ourselves, not every single day, because you'll drive yourself crazy, because we're not perfect. But once every 3 months, once every 6 months, sit back and say, okay, these are the things that I see. How do I want to correct them? And now make your goals. And now with goal setting, come up with your objectives. You know, come up with the list of things that you want to do on a daily basis that you know will make you feel good, because you're sitting down and you're saying this is what I want. So it's with me in action and putting some actualization behind that thought is every 3 weeks in my high school classes, I give a motivational talk, motivational speech, just on giving clear-cut definitions of words. You know, my favorite example for my students is, you know, do you love your mom? You know, do you love your parents? And everybody says yes. Well, now I ask you, what is love? What's love? Everybody's, oh no, I love her. Okay, what is love? What does that mean? Because, you know, words are used to define certain words, but I think we share these words, but we're not specific about the definition behind it. So what I tell my students is, love is sacrifice. You know, and if you love yourself, you're willing to sacrifice for yourself. How much are you holding yourself accountable, because the first person you lie to is yourself? So, you know, in seeing kids really, really, really accepting some of the responsibility of their actions, and of course, I'm high school, I'm adolescents. Everybody likes.
It's such an important time. I mean, you're mentoring these individuals that may have never even had that conversation.
Right.
So this is part of their health. There's a psychological health, and you're mentoring them into building a future for themselves. And some of them may not have even had those conversations with their parents, and then building love, morals, and having that's really big. And I mean, it shows through, in a, motivational, call it, a psychological mental health component of this. You're helping these individuals see a part of themselves they probably have never even been able to understand. And the actionable steps are just them getting there.
Yeah. And it's the huge thing right now, we're seeing a lot of labels and identity. Like I have a lot of kids who come to me and ask me questions about things that I feel like it's not your time to really start trying to classify with a specific label. Like right now, at this point in your life, your who you are is based off of what you value. So come on, let's sit back and let's start talking about values. What do you value? So like we said before, you're talking about how you love your parents. Well, what do you do? You know, I give them, little homework assignments on different Fridays. Go home and just wash the dishes without someone telling you. Put love in action. And now once the kids are better able to define the specific meanings behind a virtue mindset, behind words and not what they mean through what they say, but what they mean through their action. I get a lot of positive feedback from that, like, oh man, coach, I walked up to my mom and I gave her a hug and I told her I loved her and I cleaned the house before she got here and I just walked away, like you said, and she followed me into my room like, is everything okay? And it was just, because if you have an adolescent teen, if they're cleaning up and give you a hug and say I love you, then you're like,
They're
okay,
like,
where
oh
you
no, something happened.
yeah. Did you get in trouble in school? And I think that's uh, there's a feeling that we're living wrong if that's the first thing we think when someone pours into us a little bit, when somebody gives us something,
Yeah.
when somebody sacrifices and gives you a little bit of love. Now it's all of a sudden they want something.
I think what it is you're trying to transition that negative thinking to like that positive thinking. You're really putting that perspective because, like you said, the woman's like, did something go wrong? Mom's like, what's wrong? And I think it just keeps coming to like, it's okay to be good, or to try to do these altruistic events. And it's nice that you're, acknowledging that for these individuals, because I think teens are probably even the hardest above all to like come get through. I would say as a healthcare provider, when I see my teen, mostly it's women, girls, women, then having those conversations because moms will be like, she needs help. She needs help. I'm like, right, let's see what's going on. And they don't want to talk, and to discuss these steps to help. But once you kind of look at their behaviors and you're talking to their actions, that's awesome. That's really profound.
How you view the world defines the world you see. If you change the way you view things, the things you view change. So with me getting into motivation, I didn't want to focus so much on action as much as like, who are you as a person? Who are you as an individual? So I defined it from the big 5 personality traits and telling kids, what is conscientiousness? What is agreeableness? What is neuroticism? What is openness to, what are these personality vectors that kind of shape how you view the world? And then from a sociological approach, how important is, family? I tell all of my students, family is older than religion. Everybody talks about God or Christianity or whatever, but the family and the social structure and unit is older than anything that we have built.
Right.
So,
anything, whatever that family is, their village family. I mean, their unit. Yes. I think that connection, that quality connection has shown through the research how it's so important. And when children, teenagers feel like they're not connected with their family at the base, that it actually will affect them long term.
I get a lot of kids. Of course, there's all kinds of homes, and what I tell my students, especially because really, honestly, in this day and age, the majority of them come from broken homes.
Yeah.
Whether this happened or that happened, or what I try and tell the kids, I have a best friend who never grew up with his dad. He never knew his dad. So right now, at this point of his life, as a father, that is the most important thing for him. Like, he's picking his kids up. He's doing this so we can always choose. Yeah, we always have a choice when we're looking at a specific situation. And he could be, depressed about not having that relationship with his father as a child. Or you can say, because I went through this, when I am a father, I am going to be the best father that I can be. Like, we always have a choice in a situation. We may not love the consequences, or we may not love what the choices are, but there's always a choice. So giving them the definitions of family and community and togetherness, giving them,
it's so
faith,
important.
family.
That is a really, I mean, I don't know if you know it, but this like community and connection are like utmost in the whole health approach. People do not realize that it's not just the mental health, the spiritual, that connection and quality connection, whatever it is, you're probably part of their connection too. Yes. That is really part of their healthcare, because people, when they feel alone, I mean, the research shows when they feel alone or they feel abandoned or like not able to get their message across to someone to listen, they will get sicker.
Well, and we know this as well. The best way to change your hormonal state or how you feel is not by receiving something, but actually giving something to someone else. Being the recipient of a grateful act and really thinking about that and feeling that. So, having those conversations about how your particular representation on what we do in society in terms of your job or in terms of what you have, that's not specifically who you are. So who are we? So that's what I went out and I tried to define in book one, where, a lot of my students read it and they were like, I thought it was a motivational book, but it was giving me a better understanding of who I was, and like, how can we act? How can we go somewhere if we don't know from where we're traveling? So, my big issue with what we're doing in terms of the social media craze is everybody is aiming at other aspects of other people instead of really being able to fine tune, okay, who am I from a family perspective, faith perspective, friends perspective? What play does social media and technology have on us? And faith, family, friends, and my education. Those 5 components with the temperamental components, knowing what that is, so I can identify who I am and find more value in who I am. Because if you gave me $1 million when I was 5 years old, I would have spent it on Pokemon cards. If you gave it to me when I was 18, I would have spent it in the club. And if you give it to me right now when I'm 40, I'll put it in real estate or stocks.
Right. You'd have a totally different view, but you had to learn. You had to be mentored and understand the value of a dollar, value of time.
Right.
Totally different.
So every experience, good or bad, has a blessing in it. So what I tell my students is the word sin is a archery term, and it means to miss the mark. Well, the best way that you can shoot an arrow is to connect the negative and positive moments of your life, step back from that, and now aim at your new goal on the horizon and use both of those things, because now your strings from your bow and arrow is stretched out as far as it can go.
I love that.
And aim and go and shoot. Are you going to miss? Maybe. Well, of course. If we had the attitude we had as adolescents when we were learning how to walk, we would be worried about our diaper. We would be worried about falling. We'd be worrying about what we're wearing and how we look. But at 2 years old or 3 years old, at whatever age you learned how to walk, you didn't care about anything other than walking. You didn't care about anything other than your goal and your aim. So stop getting tied into or even shying away from the negative moments in your life. Sometimes we just have to face up to it, understand it, and then positively and with that separation, you're better able to courageously move forward. And we know that changes your hormone release in terms of cortisol and dopamine. Dopamine is released when you feel like you are willingly accepting and moving forward towards a challenge.
Yeah.
Same experience, but if you feel like that experience is being put on you and you don't want to do it, now cortisol and stress hormone is released, and that makes all the difference in the world. So if you change the way you see your situation or your predicament and look at it as an opportunity and something that you are willingly moving forward to conquer, you could win. So I guess my last example is, if you look at the castle system, if you have your king, who entertains the king is the fool. The fool or the jester. Well, why are they so closely related? Because in order for you to become a master of any new skill, you have to be willing to risk that first step. The first time you do it, you're going to be a fool. The fool goes off into the unknown. Everybody's screaming, hey, no, whatever. And because you have an inner ideal, because you have an inner drive to rip through the fabric of reality and conquer something, you go into the forest where it's darkest, and you're able to return back to the village, return back to the community with some new knowledge, and that's when you become king.
So interesting, because you're saying the fool, and the irony of there is, it's like people would think that they are a fool and they're doing something not correct, but you're saying that you can change it and do the perspective of making, that mistake and then learning from it instead of just giving up. Right.
Well, and I don't even want to say correct. I want to be more like deviance, it's because if we look at the landscape, if all we do is what we've done, then we never grow.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're only about growth, then we have no rules. So it's always an ebb and flow. It's always a mixture of it's almost like the yin and yang, and trying to get to that middle line,
Right.
where there are some rules that, like I tell my children today or now, I'm like, look, you have to understand there's two things. One, the rules are there for a reason. Whatever rules they're there, people died, people sacrificed, people were put in all kinds of situations to make these rules. And under these rules, you have to follow them. But because we want change, innovation, and growth, I will say that, rules are made to be broken as well. So I tell my children now is this: look, if you break a rule, you better have a very good, rational, logical explanation as to why you did it. I don't want to hear, I don't know. Or I don't want to hear, I know. Like if we sit down, because the point of me as an educator is not to give you information. The point of me as an educator is to hone your ability to think and speak. If you can think and speak, you're dangerous. You can do anything in this world. That's the most important thing. So it's not about getting the answers right, because no one gets all the answers right. If you always get all the answers right all the time, you're not pushing yourself, you're not challenging yourself, you're not growing yourself. So it's not about right or wrong. It's about your ability to take in the landscape, analyze it, and articulate it. And as you hone that skill and you're better able to truthfully speak about what you see, the world is yours, so it's always a battle. It's always a challenge, especially dealing with high school kids, but
I love what you're talking.
For high school kids.
I think you have so much. Oh my God, you have to be on again. We have to have more conversations about this, how much you can motivate, and maybe even a little webinar of some sort. I'm putting a collective book together of Mindful Integrative series. So I'd love for you to just put your story in there too at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I want those listening to you, how can they reach you? And what is your book? Can you please say your name of the book? Your book?
My book is, and I wasn't shy with the title. I named it The Book Everyone Should Read. It's a 3-book motivational series. The first one is
The Book That Everyone Should Read. Is that
The Book That Everyone Should Read?
I love it. Yes. That's great. That's great. That's really catchy. Right.
So defining you from a sociological and a psychological standpoint. And then my second book, which I'm going to release in November, is a continuation of that. And that is the 3 virtues that I think we should all focus in on: is courage, love, and discipline. And courage has everything to do about your health. How intentional are you about what you eat? How intentional are you about your sleep? And how intentional are you about your exercise? And then, so that's courage, love, and discipline. They're all broken down into practical steps. So my website is www.motiveandmotivation.com. And I really like to focus on the physiological changes that take place. Like, everybody thinks of exercise as washboard abs or losing weight. What exercise does for your body, for your mind and your brain, after a 15-minute walk, BDNF is secreted into your blood, and we know what that does from a brain perspective in terms of increasing white matter and gray matter. Yeah. White matter is your brain's ability to communicate. Gray matter is it's your brain itself. So what we're seeing in terms of meditation, what we're seeing in terms of grounding, if there's any problem that we have in our society, it's that we don't pay attention enough to our relationship with nature, our relationship period.
I talk about that quite often, is grounding in just putting your feet on the grass, or whatever floor. And it's just, even if you can't, someone tells me that they don't have the opportunity because their environment doesn't give them that, which I can give them that. I can understand, but hopefully at least on the weekends to try to get there, or at least on the grass,
Yeah. And the crazy thing is with this, researching and doing the information or getting the information from my 3rd book, which is really going into the science of Why is it important to sleep? What happens when we sleep? The proper amount. The scientific data is in. It is measurable. It's not something. It's not faith. It is standing outside barefoot in the grass makes it decreases your cortisol levels, your stress levels.
Yeah.
If you're sore or anything like that, it moves lactic acid out of you. So all of these things are kind of new, and they're coming out, and they're getting a lot of attention now. So, but it's how important are relationships, not in terms of what you can gain, but the reciprocal nature of a relationship, the give and take from two human beings, and in a relationship with the divine, a belief in something, where I'd say if you're agnostic, that means you believe in nature. So go out and do some grounding and be around trees and things of that nature. So that's
I love
me.
it. I love it. I love your, is that your tip? As I say, kind of leaving a little tip for the day. Do you have anything that you like? I mean, you've already been giving such a wealth of knowledge, but is there one last daily thing that you'd like to leave with the audience?
100%. My go-to is everybody. If you have a sports background, everybody knows about momentum. Right? Like if you've watched a football game before, you've seen a team that was down by 28 points and you're almost about to shut it off. And then all of a sudden they come back and win it, or a basketball game or something of that nature. So momentum is real. So I tell everybody because in order for you to be enter a meditative state, you need 4 areas of your brain to fire. You need your basal ganglia, which is go or no go. You need your occipital lobe. That when if I scratch a chalkboard, when you see it and you feel in action, and then two parts of your prefrontal cortex, fight or flight part, your amygdala, and then just your lateral prefrontal cortex, which is, you can't lie to yourself. You can't say that one of my goals is to open the door. It's not enough of a challenge. So my thing is, every morning try and start off with momentum, and have a 2 or 3 thing that you do every morning to stack up wins, win, and win. So what I say, get a 10-minute meditation in, get a 15-minute walk in, and end every shower off, or even your morning shower, with it being cold. Because it's you can look at the Wim Hof breathing method, but we know cold exposure and what it does. We know meditation and how it affects and grows your areas of your prefrontal cortex that have specifically to do with focus. Our social media craze, like everything you do, you're training your brain. So all of our social media networks in the short attention spans, it is changing what your brain and how your brain thinks. So just those 3 things can get you moving into, and there are mornings where I don't feel like getting up and working out for my 30 minutes in the morning. I say do it in the morning anytime you build a habit, because if it's the first thing and you go, now you can get that positive dopamine spike. And now, before you turn on the news, before you turn on the radio and the negativity from society comes in, you are already on fire. Every performance, if you go see Beyonce, she's warming up for that. If you go and see a basketball player, we warm up before games. What do you do to warm up for the game of life that we approach every time we open our eyes, but every time we go out the front door, we are at the mercy of, some of the most, horrific things or great things. Get ourselves, what are you doing to consciously put yourself in a positive, motivated state every morning? Because you love yourself, because you do, not because of the words, but because of the actions you're willing to take to get yourself in a motivated state. You don't get motivated. You don't stay motivated. You get motivated. What are you actively doing every morning to do it? 3 simple things. And the cold shower at the end is a challenge, where you get a cold shower.
Yeah, the cold shower some people don't like, but I tell people, like, even if you could put cold water on your face, even a little bit in the day, that's always a nice little kind of jolt.
Yeah. Well, the think back to your life. The biggest lessons that you've had in your life, a lot of the times, come from negative experiences. Come from times in which, the champions. excellence withers where there is no adversary, right? You cannot, the best feelings you have is when you face a challenge. So what is that challenge? I think a ending off the cold or ending off a morning hot shower with a 30-second cold shower, it's a challenge for me. So seeing yourself on the other side of it, and what it does for focusing in the focal point of your brain, the medial strip. It strengthens
get you strengthened every little bit. I mean, it's a muscle too, right? And the neuroplasticity in the body and the brain needs to grow, so it needs to change. And we can only do that with a little bit of quietness.
Yes.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you being on. Can you again just say how that people can reach you, your website?
Yes. You can. There are two ways. I do a little 7-minute podcast with Motive and Motivation. So on my website, www.motiveandmotivation.com. If anybody has a question or anything of that nature, I answer those, and I give a synopsis of my book. Of all 3 books, I have a few football books out, but really just trying to have a running dialogue and conversation with people and open up opinions and conversations. And if someone listens to this and they're driving along to work and they're a little bit happier, they're feeling a little bit better, that's the best value in the world. I think we mistake worth with price. But I think the most valuable thing on the earth is air, and it's free. So, true value has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the natural things, with the feeling of the sun, the rays of the sun on our skin, and being able to understand that every day that we are on this earth is a blessing. There are more people in the earth than on the earth, and it doesn't matter what your situation is. Somebody in the earth will trade with you in a heartbeat. Doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter what you're going through. There's somebody in a grave right now that would say, I will take your spot like yesterday if you want to give it up. So extract the lessons and blessings from every experience that we have on this earth, and be the change that you wish to see in the world.
I love it. Thank you so much for those beautiful words. I think on that note, I'll end it with that. And thank you guys for joining in today on this mindful chat. And I will have all the information in the show notes. And like I said, make sure you find a mindful way each and every day. So thanks again, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the Mindfully Integrative Show with Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, family nurse practitioner. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnose, or treat. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your healthcare routine. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please support us by leaving a mindful review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite streaming platform. Interested in being a guest or more information? Email us at info@mindfullyintegrative.com. For resources mentioned in the show, visit our website at www.mindfullyintegrative.com. You can also connect mindfully with Dr. Damaris on her social media links found on the site. May your strength and peace guide you to find a mindful way every day. Namaste.